Dozens of New Mexico counties have passed measures opposing gun safety legislation this session, and 10 counties have passed ordinances banning unions from requiring payments of workers who benefit from union contracts, regardless of whether or not they're union members. But the governor says it's time for counties to toe the line on gun safety, and the legislature just passed a bill banning county-level ordinances on so-called right-to-work issues. All that's got us thinking, Merritt, are counties starting to feel their oats a little bit here, and are we in a new reality? Is this going to be a sort of what we can come to expect from now on in our sort of our milieu of governance here?
Well, absolutely. I think the stage has been set for 2020, and lines have been drawn, and what we see is urban versus rural.
Right.
That to me is the biggest. And you look at the counties that did not pass Second Amendment sanctuary: Santa Fe,
right.
Albuquerque, Doña Ana.
Right on.
Everybody else, they're on. And you look at the House committee structure, and there are no committee chairmen appointed from outside of Albuquerque or Santa Fe,
right.
Or south of Albuquerque. So now we have north versus south, we have rural versus urban, and now we've got county versus state. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a very real issue that will have to be addressed. Addressed in 2020, because if like we just talked about ethics legislation, if the legislature is going to fail on that, maybe counties will pick it up. I mean, to me, it seems like they're picking up a gap from what they're not getting from their legislature.
Right. Tom, help us parse this out a little bit more too. What do counties gain by bumping up against state government like this? And Merritt just, kind of laid it out there quite brilliantly, but is there something to be gained here beyond just headlines and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, it's gaining. The gain is in the grassroots support and really identifying and mobilizing bases.
Right.
Now, this is nothing new. It just seems to be getting headlines now because this initially surfaced back probably about, I'd say 6-7 years ago with on the issue of fracking. There were environmental groups that went in to basically get anti-fracking measures established in different counties where there was absolutely no chance for oil and gas drilling to take place. You kind of fast forward, I would say it is, especially on the gun Second Amendment counties issue, it is not necessarily a red or blue issue, although I think the blue kind of got caught up into it. It's a Republican versus Democrat issue.
Gotcha.
Because the Second Amendment counties, the NRA is a group that's behind that, and I don't mean that in a bad way. That's just the group that's behind it. And then on the right to work, which is another issue that is causing counties to step up, that's funded through a group that's funded by the Koch family, another very Republican family. But one of the things I was mentioning off air is I had a very hard time finding any news coverage that actually included a list of all of the 10 counties that were included in the right to work kind of ordinance. And it's Sandoval, San Juan County, McKinley, Otero County, Lincoln, Chavez, Eddy, Roosevelt, Lee, and Sierra. And so with the exception of McKinley and San Juan and Sandoval, they are predominantly all southern counties and stuff. But I thought that was an interesting kind of lay of the land. I don't know if it's necessarily sets the table for good governance, but it definitely sets the table for debate and discussion of issues.
Would state government be wise, Senator, to kind of take heed of this and say, okay, let's pull back from the emotion a little bit and just figure this out? Because Merritt makes a good point. If you think about leadership positions especially, and who gets represented, that's a legitimate concern, it would seem to me.
Well, that's a legitimate concern,
but
I think that that's a separate issue from the state versus counties. Make no mistake about it, this has been a long time since the Sagebrush Rebellion in the late 1970s, where counties wanted to take over federal land. And that's resurfaced during the Obama administration too. But basically, what we're seeing now is about the underlying issue. It's about gun control, and it's about right to work. It's not about local control versus the big bad state. And I'll give you an example of some of the hypocrisy that's involved with this in terms of gun control. In 2003, when we passed at the state level a concealed carry bill allowing concealed carry, there were several cities that came and outlawed concealed carry within their boundaries, including Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and others. And who were the ones that were rallying around state preemption of local ordinances, but the NRA and the gun enthusiasts. So that's directly in opposition to what's going on now with these Second Amendment sanctuary states. So it's really about that underlying issue. I think the people are in favor of local control when it's in their interest, for their especially their ideological interest, not often their material interest. So.
Sophie, isn't what Senator describing the pure essence of governing, though? You've got these interests that are very pure and very narrow in these places. You got to find a way to mesh them, right? Isn't this just the way it should go?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think one of the challenges, though, for the state, and I think for gun owners too, is that if there's this sort of hodgepodge of, it works one way in one county and another way in another county, makes it much harder to regulate and enforce. Now, obviously, I think that's sort of the point for the counties that are saying that we want to be sanctuary counties. But, ultimately, this debate. We end up having to have a workable system. We need that.
Right.
I do want to address one thing,
Please.
though. Certainly the debate online talks about the Second Amendment and how this new bill from the state, it's an abrogation of my rights, et cetera, et cetera. And we have an 11-year-old Supreme Court decision that says, actually, no, the states have a fair amount of power to regulate, and that's U.S. v. Heller, have a fair amount of power to regulate, and that has been upheld over the last 11 years.
Yep. And that was written by Scalia.
And it was written by a conservative favorite. That's right, the conservative favorite at this point, I think. And so. When the rhetoric goes into this kind of, I think, sort of frightening, you're taking away a basic fundamental liberty, not acknowledging that there's context for that liberty, and that context is laid out in Heller and other decisions. I think, especially around guns, we have the real possibility for dangerous interactions. And that does worry me.
Merritt, when I mentioned the state, just to be clear here, we have a governor, and she came out pretty strong on this. We think we know where she's at about where counties are coming from versus her power as the head of the state. Does she bear some blame here, or if blame's too strong a word, does she bear some, she engaged in the fight pretty vigorously. Is there another way to handle this as far as you can see?
I think it's possible she may have underestimated the pervasiveness of support for gun rights and gun ownership in this state. I think we saw this, it was last week, Edgewood had a town meeting, and it was packed. And everyone expected we're going to become a Second Amendment sanctuary town, right? Because we're conservative and we're rural, and the mayor's like, well, it's not on the agenda.
Right.
Well, you can pass something, can't you? And so there is an expectation among voters that this is kind of sacrosanct, and it crosses party lines. Particularly when you get in the rural areas, lifetime Democrats take their gun ownership rights very seriously, whether they are spun up by special interest groups or not. It is a very real concern. The march we had, was it yesterday, with 100 horses shipped into to ride through. I can't emphasize enough that I think this rural-urban divide is going to be a major factor in our 2020 election, and that's something the governor will have to consider for her reelection.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that last bit. I want to throw that to Tom right on that point. Exactly right. There are ramifications here on how one engages with this, aren't there? I mean, you can set up you can light the fuse early, or you can kind of tamp the fuse out. It's interesting.
Well, and there is an issue that if it is successful in being endorsed or approved by the Secretary of State's office, the whole Second Amendment counties issue, or the gun bill that was recently signed by the governor that expands, background checks on all gun sales, will be up for a vote as a part of the November 2020 election. Now, if it's successful, since statehood, I thought this was an interesting trivia piece that there are 3 such attempts have been launched. Only one in 1930 was ultimately successful in repealing state law.
Wow.
So the odds are not necessarily in their favor,
Right.
but it's still, it's one of the ways that this issue has manifested itself potentially, onto the 2020 ballot.
Right.
But, yeah.
How do we get some parity, Sophie, about this rural versus urban divide, or is this just permanent? This is just it. This is who we are.
Well, it's not just New Mexico, right? It's
Right.
a national
Right.
discussion. The New York Times had a big piece a couple of months ago about, the author was essentially arguing maybe we should just forget the rural areas, which, I thought was a pretty shocking statement. But it is a discussion that's happening across the country. How many resources should we be putting into rural versus urban areas, et cetera? I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Right.
But I also don't see any easy fixes for it either.
Senator, pick up on that. This will be our last thought on this one. Is there a fix here? Or should there be a fix? Again, everyone has their own interests, and that's okay. It's how you express it that's the difficulty, certainly.
Well, there is no easy fix to this, and
Yeah.
it's plagued New Mexico for a really long time. Economic development in rural areas, more jobs in rural areas, I think, is part of the solution. And there are other factors in New Mexico. People who live in rural areas have ties to urban areas. They go back. Sometimes they have two houses. Sometimes they go back and forth between the city and the rural area. So, it's a two-way street. It's not totally rural versus totally urban, because the histories of migration from northern New Mexico to Albuquerque and to Las Cruces. It's a difficult problem that's not going to go away.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Out of time on that one, but we bring back this August group back in a few minutes to talk about whether New Mexico should adopt out of the Electoral College.